Hi, everyone, and welcome to another night sky tour with Warren Hart, CTC's astronomer. This month, we're going to be doing it for July, and that way you're ahead and you'll have all of your constellations ready for our beautiful summer evenings to look up in the sky. Before we get started, make sure that if you need attendance credit for scholarship, that you go to our library website, and Lee put it in the comments under the LibGuide, the library events, and go ahead and register. Lee also put our astronomy LibGuide in the comments, and that way you can follow along with us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Warren Hart. Are you ready, sir, to take it away?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone that's here with us. Glad to have you come back. And also for the new ones that have signed up. We're going to, like Cindy said, we're going to be looking at July. So we'll let you see here a copy of the calendar, and we'll look at the first page of it, the front of it, and we'll get there to it. Here we go. There we see we are in that blank area right there of Monday, June the 28th. That's where we are right now. There's 2 more days of June left. And so we'll just skip right over to July the 1st. And as you notice there, the very first thing that would be coming up as far as an event is one of the phases of the moon, and it happens to be what's called the third or the last quarter, is that point. Now, notice that there is also a specific time, and that time is the precise time and a position in space of where the moon would be for where we would view from here on Earth as seeing it as a third quarter, last quarter moon. And then underneath you see it says, now it begins its waning crescent phase. And so the phase will start right after that time at 4:11, and it will continue on. And if you look down at on Friday the 9th, right there at the bottom, you see it says the next one is the new moon. And so the phase is in between the third quarter and the new moon, and each of those times are the point in space, like I say, and the time there of when they are at that point. So let's scroll back up there, Cindy, so we can look. And that's the only thing for July the 1st. And we continue on. We'll go over then to Sunday the 4th, and of course is Independence Day. And I did have an American flag, but I took that off. Here I had with the stars, and looked in history, and Texas was the 28th state to be join the USA, and had that on there. Now, also on the 4th in the evening is planet Mercury, and it's going to be at a thing called its westernmost elongation. Well, we would need a diagram for that, and I apologize I didn't give it to you. But the thing you want to know from it is that Mercury will be leading the sun. So in the morning of the 5th, you would see Mercury coming up first on the eastern horizon, and then the sun following. And we'll see that in just a few minutes here as we go on. Let's see there on the 5th of July, which is Monday, we have an apogee. Now, we've had in there, we talked about that the moon, as it orbits here on Earth, it's a circle, but it's not a perfect circle with a constant radius. It is like an ellipse, or some people says it would draw it and makes you think of the shape of an egg, a chicken egg, the shell. So there is a time on each time of the orbit. There's a time when the moon is apogee, and the second line there, it is the farthest away from Earth on that one specific orbit going around the Earth. Had a good question Saturday evening when I did the planetarium show, and a person asked, would the apogee moon be larger or smaller than normal? And my question would be for all of you, if you want to send it in and Lee will get it. If it's far away from us, farther away, will it be, as you look at it, larger or smaller in the sky? So think about that and we'll go on. There also on the 5th, there at the bottom, is the sun is going to be at another point we're talking about here, an aphelion. A and then the PH would be like an F, aphelion. And it is the farthest from, pardon me, farthest from the Earth, from the sun, excuse me, this year. That's Earth. And so Earth, just like the moon, Earth orbits the sun, and our orbit is a circle, not a perfect circle or a constant radius. It's also egg-shaped. And so we are in July, we are the farthest from the sun for the year. Now, if you ask someone, and I've asked in the planetarium in the past, and I would say that there is the farthest time point that Earth is from the sun and the closest time that Earth is to the sun. And the dates are in January and in July. And I asked them, which one do you think in July we would be? Farthest or closest? Well, most of the people will say farthest, or pardon me, closest. And I'll say, why are you saying that? Well, it's because we're in summer and it's hotter, so that's the reason. Well, that's good thinking, however, but it's incorrect because the Earth is tilted 23.45 degrees constantly as we orbit around the sun. And for summer, we are tilted, the tilt of that 23.45 puts the northern hemisphere tilted more directly to the sun. So even though we're the farthest in the orbit, we are getting the full blast of the sun, the sun's rays and the heat. So for us in the northern hemisphere, this seems opposite. However, if you were down in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Antarctica, and down in there, it would seem logical to you because they have just and started up their season. They are now in winter and we are in summer because of the difference of the two hemispheres. Now look, and you see a block that I put up there from Tuesday the 6th all the way to the 10th there at the top, that in the morning, each morning, you have a great opportunity to view the planet Mercury. Now, planet Mercury is relative to all the others, it would be the second hardest planet to find. The other one is the furthest away from us, that's Uranus, and it is so dim that that is really hard to find. But here also Mercury is hard because it's so close to the sun. However, here's what you would have if you got up early on the 6th at 5 in the morning and you have a good flat horizon. If you go out in your backyard and you got trees, you're going to have problems seeing Mercury come up ahead of before when the sun comes up also on the horizon. So if you were able to get out for a flat horizon, you would see the moon coming up first. And it will come up a few minutes ahead of Mercury. And then below the moon as it comes up, here comes Mercury. And it will come up a fairly bright object to see. And then you notice it says you have about an hour and 25 minutes until the sun comes up. So you have a good opportunity to get the planet Mercury high enough above the horizon that you can pick it out and see it before the twilight from the sun eliminates the possibility of you being able to view it. This happens for the next 4 days, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, the first 2 days, the 6th and the 7th, the moon is ahead of Mercury. Now, the moon travels the fastest in the sky as we would observe it, so it gets closer to Mercury, and on the 8th, it's almost right alongside it. And then the 9th and the 10th, Mercury comes up first and followed by the moon, which is then followed by the sun. So if you watched each time, you would get and notice very significantly that the moon does travel quite rapidly throughout the sky. So we have that each morning for those who want to go and take a look. On Friday the 9th, we have our first of our 8 constellations for July, and it is called Scutum here. Oh, by the way, go ahead, Cindy, you have there the slide for us on pertaining to the aphelion and the perihelion. And you notice on the diagram for the Earth and the little pink stick pointing up out of the top and down out of the bottom, that's indicating our North Pole, South Pole axis that we rotate the Earth planet itself on. And you see that it is drawn here, it is tilted, and that's at your 23.45 degrees. And it's just a little bit here that you can tell that the one on the right, the aphelion, is the farthest one away, and you can also see the distance that has been listed for you. And then the perihelion is the closest. And I use the same logic that I do with the moon. It's instead of perihelion, which means sun, that it's perigee and apogee, which is referring to the moon. So I say when it comes up at that point that a perigee of the moon reminds me that it is perilously close to Earth. And that's how I remember that it's the close one. So the other one, the aphelion, apogee, is the farthest. Thank you, Cindy, for having that up. Sorry I forgot that. Okay, here is Scutum. There's not a whole lot to it. It's the shield, and we just talked about it in the planetarium the other night of whose shield, and we've just attributed to the constellation right below and to the left of it there a little bit of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, that would be his shield, and that's what we're saying. Now, the advantage that if you do come to the planetarium when I do this on the Saturday evening, the last Saturday of the month, You would then be in there when we go through the calendar. We darken the planetarium, and then with the constellations up, and I use my red laser, and I point out where the constellations are, and I talk and show people how to find and follow from one constellation to the other. And I cannot do that here in this until we're able to develop a video and show something like that. But anyway, here is Scutum, and just scroll up, if you will, for the second page, if you would, Cindy. And there, every constellation on the back side has the page of information, and those little numbers there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the letter A is referring, and if you'll go back up to the first page, those numbers are talking about and pointing out where those stars are, and then you see the little yellow circle, that's the object, and that's the letter A, and that's, you would see that, and you would go to the second page to find out what I'm talking about there. Okay, so let's go back to the calendar. And on the calendar, we notice that we have both Scutum, the shield, and we have Corona Australis. Now, we can go ahead and go to that, go to the constellation, and the name of it, Corona Australis, as a reminder for you, is the names of all of the constellations, the 88 constellations, are in Latin. So Corona, if you want to know what that is from Latin into English, look over to the right and you would see crown. And Australis, what is that in Latin? In English, you go over and you see it would be either south or southern. So there you have, and you just have to recognize what the Latin names is for each of the constellations. And after you get familiar with them, you know you have no problem with it. Corona Australis, notice there are two very significant constellations right next to it. Above it is Sagittarius, and we're going to look at that in just a little while. And to the right, you see Scorpius, and that's the end of the tail, and the coming up, and those two dark circles there, right below the word Scorpius, are the two stars that make up the stinger for the constellation Scorpius, just like a scorpion itself. And so knowing those two constellations, Sagittarius and Scorpius, it's very easy then for you to be able to find Corona Australis. All right, let's go back to the calendar and let's see what else is coming up. So there, and we have then, we talked the very last thing, a busy day on that Friday, is the new moon. And so we have gone from the third quarter moon on the 1st of July, that we now have down here on the 9th, we have a new moon, and that's its point and its time at 8:16. And then it's going to go from a waning crescent. Scroll up just a little bit so we can look at third quarter, if you would, Cindy. Little bit, yeah, go on up to the first page, the top of the first page. There we go. Notice I have there, it says it's a waning crescent. Remember, we talked about it the last month and the previous, waning, and down there, the new moon, talking waxing, are old English words, terms, and they mean strengthening and losing strength. And so the waning is to, if you will, losing strength. Think of, we'll just say for myself, Warren's health is waning, okay? Or if we go down to the bottom there, waxing, you could say, my health is waxing. It's getting better. And so waning and waxing is what it's talking about here. And we go from a waning crescent on the third quarter to a waxing crescent now as it begins to strengthen more and more of this. The surface of the moon is illuminated that we can see, waxing crescent. Okay, that's the first week and a half. Let's go to the second page and we'll finish up the month here. And on Sunday the 11th, we have our next constellation of Lyra, the Lyre, and I always spell it Lyre rather than you thinking Liar. And it's there. And so, Cindy, when you can, we'll go to Lyra, and here it is. Another constellation, and it's very easy also to find. And I gave in the planetarium showing how you use the handle of the Big Dipper, and you go down, follow the curve of the handle, the arcing of the handle to a star called Arcturus, and then you go to the west from the western to the eastern horizon, going east, and you will go over toward a bright star, and there it is. And it's listed there as number 2, and that is Vega, Vega. And some information on there, very much, it's an interesting star. Let's scroll to the second page, if we will. Okay, come. Notice there's a few more stars. And if you see on number 2, Vega, there's a whole paragraph of things about Vega. It's, by the way, you notice it is the brightest star for the constellation Lyra, and it will be our bright one for the month of July, second only to the earlier in June we had the Scorpion, and actually for there. But here it's the brightest, and also it's the closest. It's 25 light years away. First star to be photographed, first star to have its spectrum photographed. And when we talk about the spectrum, we're talking about you use a spectroscope. And for those of you who are familiar with that, where you can then see, you break the light from an object and will break it into the different colors. And you are able to tell what the gases are that that planet is, or that star is sending out that we have here in there. And notice the very last sentence, because of precession, the astronomers found a few centuries ago that our Earth is not stable in space as we would think. It is like a top. A top, when you spin it up and it begins to slow down, it wobbles, and our Earth wobbles, and the whole one wobble is relatively pretty long. It's about 26,000 light year, 26,000 years for one wobble. So basically, for the record of mankind, we haven't even gone through one wobble yet. And if I don't think anybody here can stay alive until the year 14,000, because by then Vega will then become Polaris. And you say, no, wait a minute, Warren, we've already got a Polaris. Yeah. However, Polaris is Latin for pole star. So rather than it having another name, it's been just called now for these few centuries, 18s and the 1900s and now the 2000s, we just call it Polaris. And Polaris is Latin for pole star. And then you go on down, you see the different pieces of information there. And what we have in that. And so another thing that the whole constellation has in it there, you see down there in the green, the solar apex. Now, it says that it's a point in our Milky Way galaxy that the sun is moving to, and we seem to be going toward that point. Now let's scroll back up to the first page, the map, and you'll see it in the lower right-hand corner of the area dedicated to Lyra. There it is, the SA, the solar apex, and that's where we're headed. And the sun is dragging us along in doing that, and that's by gravity from the sun. Okay, let's go back to the calendar. And we go next over to Tuesday, and we have an interesting thing in the sky. Planet Venus, which is normally the brightest planet in the sky, and it's going to be just barely, not even a half a degree away from the planet Mars. Now, my question would be, based on the brightness of the two, Venus and Mars, that should give you one clue of which one is which, but there's also another clue of how you can tell which one of those two planets in the sky, which one is Mars. What would be another thing that we would know about Venus and about Mars of what we would see when we look in the sky at those two planets? Which one would give us something that will say, this is me, I am the planet, and there you go. Now, also on that day, the Tuesday, there in the evening, there's our constellation of Sagittarius the Archer. And while you're thinking about Venus and Mars and what's going to give you an idea of which it is, let's take a look at Sagittarius here. And we scroll down, and as you go to it, notice what's there on just on the bottom part of Sagittarius. There is the one we looked at, Corona Australis. Now look above it, and what do you see? There is Scutum. So what we do here for this month is we're going down a pretty close north to south line in the sky. We're not going to skip over too far to the one side or the other. We're going to stay pretty close in a line going down from there. But let's look at Sagittarius. And you see there's a lot of stars that I've indicated. And then also there's a bunch of yellow circles there. In fact, there's 5 of them, A, B, C, D, and E. And if we scroll to the second page there, you'll notice that there's a number of stars. There's a total of 20 of them, but also it starts off, there's an A and a B, a C, and those, when you look over to the right, they are clusters of stars. A is an open cluster, B is an open cluster, and it also has a nebula. Nebula is Latin, and all nebula means is cloud. And it can be a cloud of gas, or it can be a cloud of dark dust or whatever might be. And then we have the stars, and you go down and see number 6, Coastal Borealis, and then there is D and E, the other two that are listed there of those clusters. And E is pretty significant. Notice E, look over on the right, it's the 3rd brightest globular cluster, and you can cross-check and see if they're right when they say there's 500,000 stars or plus, And if you count long enough, you can give us the correct number and we'll make the change so that we don't want to put out false information. Okay, let's go on then. And we have another thing on Sagittarius. It has an asterism inside of it there. An asterism, A-S-T-E-R-I-S-M, means only that it is the name of an object people are calling it in the sky by connecting lines to different stars and make it look like something. Now, I think, don't you have another page of Sagittarius there? There you go. Go on up, or is you just have 1 and 2? That's it? Okay. Well, go back up to the first page then, page 1 of it, and you see the dotted lines. And if you follow along with me, look over to the right corner of that dotted line, and it's got a star with the number 1. And you notice if you connect 1 and to the left to number 4, and down to number 5, we would call that the spout of the teapot, because 4, 5 to the left, 10 and 7 is the body or the can of the teapot. Now look above and go 7, 6, and 4. That's the lid of the teapot. Go back to the left to 7, go 7, 8, 12, and 10, there's your handle. So there's the teapot. And I always remember when I see it in the sky that Sagittarius the Archer is pouring boiling hot water on the tail of the scorpion. Now, there is another very interesting thing also about this. Notice from star number 1, you find that? Go to the right of it and up just a little bit, and you see something galactic center. That is considered the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Now you say, Warren, I've seen pictures and I don't see all the stars that I see on other galaxies, because when you see pictures of galaxies in space, the closer you get to the center, you get more and more and more and more and more stars, because there are being attracted by the center. Well, the same thing there. However, we have a dark nebula in between us and the center of our Milky Way galaxy, and we cannot see the center visually. A number of years ago, an astronomer was figuring out, and he found and determined that every star is sending out an electromagnetic signal. It's transmitting. And so he began to plot where these signals were coming from on a map that he had. And as the closer he went to the right, he got more and more. And eventually he and some others, they plotted, and they have considered that the center of where all those stars are that are sending the signal, that is where the center of our Milky Way is. We cannot see it visually, but with a radio telescope and the signals from each of the suns, the stars, we can determine that's where it is. Okay? Interesting on that. Okay, let's go back to the calendar. And we have there on that. Also, on Sagittarius, I called it an ecliptical constellation. And if we had looked at the map of it, we would see that the page is straddling, is in the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, well, pardon me, on the north and south of the eclipse, the ecliptical path of the sun, not the equator. That was my error. Okay, let's look over on the 17th on a first quarter. So we're continuing on. We've gone past the new moon and we're now to the first quarter. And at that point, there it is on the first quarter, and then it's going to start still increasing and getting more and more of the visual part of the moon reflecting sunlight to us, and it's waxing, but it's called gibbous. Well, that's another Latin term, and gibbous means hump, H-U-M-P. And so what you would see then, it looks like it's got a bulge on it. It's got the hump on it. And that's what we'll be looking at. You'll see that for some time here. Now let's go down to the 19th. And on the 19th, we have the constellation Telescopium. Boy, do you see how inventive the astronomers are and creative in their names for the constellations. I mean, okay, telescope. So we're going to take a look at the telescope constellation, and you'll see, oh, 3 stars. Well, actually 4. Not a whole lot there. And there's 2 there of 4 and 5 together, real close. So that's about it in the constellation of the Telescopium constellation. An interesting thing and a very creative observation by one of the people that was attending Saturday in the planetarium. He had me when we were going through the constellations to look, and if you look over in what's called the constellation area of Ara, A-R-A, there, actually it's the just above that word, that's the part of the tail of the scorpion. If you take those 3, 4 black dots that seem to be in line, see there, you have about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 3 little bitty dots of it. And so what he came up with, and we've decided that the whole length there from numbers 2 in Telescopium up to the upper right where the stinger of the scorpion is, that's indicating for us that's the tube of the telescope. So the telescope, the diagram there inside the white area, we're just calling that's its tripod. So I thought that was very creative of him, and many people in the planetarium agreed, and so that makes it easier to find then if you want to consider that those 3, 4 brighter stars in the end of the tail of the scorpion with the stinger, and let them point you back to the left, and you would find then Telescopium, the tripod. Very creative. Notice on this one, also Telescopium, we've gone far enough south that you can see there is our southern horizon, that brown dashed line there. Everything from that dashed line south to the South Pole, if you stay here at the planetarium's latitude, you will never see any of those other stars, anything that's down below there. So let's go back, if you would, to the calendar page. And we go and notice our sun as it moves along the ecliptical path. It's now going to enter the constellation of Cancer, the crab. And I believe, I send one to you? I think so, Cindy, or just there you go. And you notice the blue line of the ecliptic, and over where that vertical line that's labeled 8H, that's 8 hours. And there at that intersection and where the white area would be right there, that's when the sun in its travel in space as we would see it here from Earth, that's when it enters then the constellation Cancer. And that's all that means, that it's in there. Okay, let's go to the calendar and pressing on. We have then, we've gone from prior the apogee, and now we have the perigee. And from, we talked about that. And so the perigee, like I've listed there, it's close. It's the closest on this orbit. And of all the 13 perigee moons throughout the month, throughout the year, and you say, why 13? Well, there's 1 month, and it's a 31-day month. And I believe it's next month, or 2 months, it's August, if what I remember right, has 2 perigees in the same month. So that's what that would be. And also in that, that's in the morning. And in the evening, then, we have the constellation of Pavo the Peacock. So let's take a look at that diagram. And here it is, Pavo the Peacock. Now, notice up at the top of the page there, Telescopium. Remember, we just had it just a little bit ago. And we said that the southern horizon here is down below Telescopium. And so we can see all of Telescopium, but we cannot for Pavo. Notice where the horizon goes along. There is only one star, and it happens to be the brightest star for it, and it's called Peacock, just by itself, and it's number 11 there, and it's the one we can see, and the others are all below the horizon. We cannot see them. So that's Pavo the Peacock. And I've indicated on there that we can only see the top 1.4 degrees of the entire part of the constellation there. Okay, let's go to the calendar. And we've had the Peacock. Now we come up, and our next one is the full moon at 9:37 in the evening on Friday, the 23rd of July. Now we have gone from, and if you scroll just up a little bit to the previous week, it's right there, good. If you'll look with me on Saturday the 17th, there about the first quarter, and then it started its waxing gibbous phase. Look now on the 23rd, we have a full moon, and now it begins a waning gibbous phase. So that tells us at the precise point of the full moon on the evening at 9:37 is when the full hemisphere we can see of the moon that is illuminated by the sun. And then as time goes on, less and less of it we're going to see in that. Our next thing is on the 24th, we have 2 constellations again. We have Aquila the Eagle as our first one, so let's take a look at Aquila the Eagle. Here is Aquila the Eagle, and it's another easy one to see on there. And we can point out, if you'll notice that Scutum, there where it is, that was our first constellation, and we talked about, And so actually the top of there would be Aquila on that. And Aquila is another one that's easy to find, and we can point that out here in a little bit. In the number 2, the larger dark circle, by the way, to indicate the magnitude or brightness of something on the map, the larger the black circle is indicating it's that it is brighter to see. It is not saying that it is larger in diameter. It's just that's all we can do on a flat map, indicating which one is brighter or dimmer. So in describing it, what I see here, the eagle is facing us. And so if you look to the upper right for stars 1 and 3, that is its left wing because it is facing us. So we would follow down the wing to the joint at number 5, and you would go over to the left to number 11, and that's its right wing. If you go back to 5 and go down, that's the rest of its body, and there's its tail and the tip of its tail at number 2. Now we go back to 5, we go up, and there's on its neck is number 6, and then the top of its head is number 7. 8 to me is the eye of the eagle, and number 10 is the tip of its beak. Notice it is pointing, those 3 stars in line, pointing out to the tip of its right wing, number 11. When you find it in the sky, it's a large, large constellation. Just remember that when it looks, and you can see that for number 11 there, you can see that star, and that will give you a very close, but an area of where in the sky the equator is. See, it's just below the equator. So this constellation would be called an equatorial constellation. It's not going to be called an ecliptical constellation because look down in the bottom left corner. There's the blue line for the ecliptic, and no part of Aquila the Eagle is on it. So that's why it's not an ecliptical, it is an equatorial constellation. Let's go on, if you would please. On the calendar, we've continued that, and we want to look down, and we have on the same evening, on the 24th, Sagitta the Arrow. And so let's go, and we'll find Sagitta the Arrow, and find out where we can see some relation to it. Well, my goodness, notice it's right on top of Aquila the Eagle. And what we would be is, notice that Sagitta, there looks like an arrow, just the stars in line and all. And it's above Aquila. And by the way, the Aquila, the bright star in Aquila there, that dark circle is Altair in that. And I'll point out here in just a moment something about Aquila and Lyra for us. But anyway, there's Sagitta the Arrow. And if you go to the second page, there's not a whole lot there, but there is information on those 5 stars. And you see that, and just some interesting information there. Sagitta is one of only 2 constellations whose 3-letter abbreviation is SGE, and it happens then to contain the letter E, which is not in its name. There's no E in Sagitta. And the other one is another constellation, Hydrus, the male serpent in the sky, and it's HYI, and there's no I in Hydrus. But that's just a little piece of information there. Okay, let's go back to the calendar. Trivial information. Okay, then we have on the 25th the equation of time, and it goes down to 6 minutes. There is a diagram we've had in the past. We didn't pull it up this time. And what happens is that because as Earth orbits the sun throughout the year, as we get closer to the sun, the actual perihelion, which is in January, our speed, if you will, in space speeds up because they're getting closer to the gravitation of the sun. And so we speed up in time if we related it to the stars in the sky, as opposed to the watch we used to carry on our wrist, but now on our phone. So the sun will seem to be ahead or behind our time on the phone and on the watch, and that's all that's indicating for us. Let's go on to the 29th, and we have another close here. The planet Mars, here it shows up again, and it shows it's 6/10 of a degree only away from the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo the Lion. And again, if you've picked out how you would determine where planet Mars is, then you would be able also to see Regulus, the star in Leo the Lion. We finish up, if you will, in here on the 31st, and I see my memory had waned because I didn't remember that the 2 third quarters is here in July, not in August. Remember, we had it on the 1st of July, and we have a third quarter on the last of July. So my error and uh, my failure to think that it was in August, it's actually in July. And we would have the third quarter, and it goes on from there. Then you continue with the waning crescent. And on the night of the 31st, we'll have in the planetarium, we'll do the night sky tour for the 8 constellations of August. However, Cindy has some information that's going to point out and make this a lot easier for us to keep track of, based on now how we can set up the schedule on the web page of the library. So Cindy, we'll go turn off here on this, and let's look at what you want to point out for them on the web page.
All right. Well, we basically, if you're trying to find this Astronomy and Mabel Science Theater LibGuide, you can always go to our library website, Academics, CTC Academics Library. Go down to the research study guides, and you can find the astronomy LibGuide or study guide there. And on the study guide, we have all of the planetariums information right here. We've got information of their schedule, their announcements. We have their shows all set up. We've got, again, Warren's monthly calendars here. We've got the constellations there. Plus, also, if you're more interested, you're interested in other topics, we also have the astronomy books and the astronomy journals of what the library has to offer you guys. Internet resources, and something fun that Warren has put together is our fun activities. He is putting all types of astronomy themed puzzles for you guys, and he's challenging you guys. We actually have a Dropbox at the end of these that you can put them in the Dropbox, and we'll look to see if you got them right. One other thing, make sure that you always check out the dates and the place of the Night Sky virtual tours. If you'll notice, next month for the August constellations and for the September constellations, we're going to be showing it not on CTC's Facebook, but on the library's Facebook. And we'll keep reminding you guys that we're moving over to the library's Facebook because that first one in August will be during Welcome Week. And we have so much going on everywhere that we've moved us on over to the library. If you've got any questions or any information, Lee put down um, the websites, and also Lee, if you'll put down in the comments the library's Facebook, so that all of our viewers and our Warren fans will know where to find us. So, does
Okay.
anybody have any questions?
There are no questions showing up on the Facebook side right now.
Okay, all right. Warren, I had one question.
Sure.
Let me go back to this. I had a question on one of them. Oh, on your equation of time.
Uh-huh.
So does that mean that that our time is really going, like, is somebody going to shift it?
No.
Or is it never going to shift to the time?
No, that would be, if you want to say, that would be our solar time. What has happened, Cindy? Good question. Real quick, is that because in keeping track of pointing this turning Earth so that at high noon, we would call that at 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. And you would notice from your watch that you had set the other day that it's different, so you'd have to reset your watch.
Okay.
You would have to reset that every day.
Oh, okay. Well,
So rather than doing that,
fun.
yeah, it would not be fun. So
Mm-mm.
rather than doing that, it was decided years ago that they would the astronomers took and determined what is an average sun.
Oh,
And
okay.
so from the average sun and the time, that is what it's used on. So we have a constant time that we can use on our wristwatch or on your iPhones or whatever you're using. And then when you look up in the sky and see this and have this equation of time chart with you, you can see that the sun is either ahead of noon or it's after noon, as what we would say there, and that's all what that's pointing out.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
And as Warren said, our next night sky tour, virtual night sky tour, will be ahead of the in-person night sky tour that Warren is going to do at the planetarium. The good thing about that is you can find out all the constellations, and then you get to go to the dome and you get to see all the stars up on the dome. So that's the way we're going to try to set it, so that you can kind of learn about it and then actually get to see the stars that Warren has been talking about. So
yeah.
make sure you go over there. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's the last Saturday of the month at 5 o'clock, and we go an hour and a half, go through the calendar, and then we go, like Cindy said, with looking there in the dome, and I point out where the constellations are and give you comments and how you can use, I use pointer system concept. All right, you find where this is and what this star is and the way it, what lines up with this or that, and take those and they point toward this other one, and you just keep following down. So I can help you find when you go out at night to find the constellations there.
Okay, well, our community is very, very lucky to have our very own astronomer who can point out what's above us in the sky. So thank you once again, Warren, for taking the time to visit with us, with sharing your knowledge. We always learn so much when we get to talk to you. So, you know, guys, make sure you tune in again. Again, remember, the next one will be at the library's website, the library's Facebook, not website. And you guys all have an awesome day today. Oh, and by the way, I saw a deer, baby